What's up? It's Mike Mal, and you are listening to the Athletor Podcast, where we dive into the processes, mindsets, strategies of some of the most successful athletes and coaches from all walks of life. So we're back at it. We got Mark Hall, and boy, do we got some stuff to talk about, man.
Yeah, we do.
Okay. Yeah, we do. Okay, first of all, congratulations on an incredible career. And thank you so much for the amount of points that you have scored. And that's really the one thing I wanted to talk to you about today is like scoring points. And yeah, we're going to get into some what's next stuff, and we're going to get into some coaching questions, but thank you. Thank you very much for coming on this podcast, but more importantly, thank you for the career that you've had.
Of course, thank you. I had a fun time doing it, so I'm glad to be here.
Well, all right. So let's start with this. You, to me, or the way that you wrestle is the way that I want my son to wrestle. Constantly thinking about scoring points and doing it in very creative, very different ways. How did you learn how to wrestle like that?
I definitely, I mean, just throughout high school, and I mean, honestly, it goes back to just the way that our club practices were ran too when I was a kid, and just the way that I was brought up in the sport. When you go out to wrestle, I never really thought about like I never really thought about like winning. It was never about winning to me. I never let wrestling be about like going out and winning this match. I mean, I can recall several occasions when I was younger of like going to a tournament and my dad would be like, all right, you can only score with high crotches today. And I would go the whole tournament, 8 years old, wrestling maybe two age groups at this tournament. And he'd be like, all right, you can only score with high crotches. I'd only shoot high crotches, or you can only score front headlock, or only score from front headlock. So I think that was a really big part of developing some of those like really basic skills. And by the time I got to college, right, like just kind of polishing them up and just continuing to have that relentlessness in those basic skills, while also adding in a lot of that creativity you see. I think that was probably just a big part of it.
Yeah. How did you learn how to score without touching the leg so much? Like, because that's not American. That's not an American style of wrestling.
So funny you say that. I was just thinking about this the other day. After I had announced my retirement or whatever at the Olympic trials, I was just kind of looking back, going down memory lane and stuff like that. And there was a time in high school where I had torn ligaments in my thumb. So I had torn ligaments in my thumb, and it was in the preseason, so there was still some things I wanted to do. I wasn't doing any other sports in high school, so at the Intermat JJ Classic, I forget what year. There's some pictures out there. I don't know if you can find them, but if they're out there, I had like a big cast from here on my fingers or on my hand all the way probably like mid forearm. And I wrestled the tournament and I did all foot sweeps, duck unders, just ways not getting people's legs. And also I have this giant cast on. And so, I mean, you wrap it up as best you can, but I mean, it's still like, you can't be like a brawler. I can't be clubbing people with that. It's dangerous. Right. So at that point, now it's not only scoring without touching the legs because I can't lock my hands. Right. It's not only scoring that,
you got to be kind of cute with it too.
Yes, you gotta be.
Yeah.
You
gotta be cute.
Have some finesse with it. So I mean, just little stuff like that. Like I've always had those skills, but at that time, I really had to hone them in because I wasn't going to wrestle in the tournament if I didn't think I could win it. And in that condition, right? That's obviously not a mindset that I have normally, but like in that condition, I wanted to wrestle. I thought I could win it, and I just wrestled as hard as I could, did what I could.
It's funny that you say that because I developed foot sweeps out of necessity as well. And it was my friend who got injured, right? And so for his shoulder was jacked, right? So we literally wrestled each other with our hands behind our back for the first 2 weeks of his injury, right? And then
Mhm.
after that, it was all right. We can't. I can't, if I get it on a leg, this thing's gonna pop right out. Forget it. But his shoulder was really jacked, and daggone it, I've got a heck of a foot sweep now because of
Mhm.
something that happened for 3 months back in like '99. You know what I mean? So it's like, yeah, that
Inside
I
trips from
wonder how.
space was
Oh,
another thing
inside
I learned how
trips
to do.
all day. Like if you hit an inside trip, like that was a 5 pointer, right? Like we
Mhm.
would just create little games to play, and it's funny, and I wonder how. I assume it happens with a lot of people, but I don't know. I wonder how many times stuff like that happens, um, and it just becomes a part of you whether you recognize it or not.
For
I
sure.
think it happens a lot. All right, Joel, anything you want to jump in on? Because I can talk technique nerd stuff all day.
I got all day,
Yeah,
man.
yeah, I'm curious, you talked about, um, you really had a lot of success because you weren't really focused on the result of wrestling, right? You weren't worried about, "Am I gonna win or lose this match?" But at the same time, you talk about competing in tournament while you're hurt because, you thought that you had a good chance of doing well at that tournament. How do you kinda balance those 2 factors, and how does that go into your overall competitive drive of wanting to win matches, but not being overly concerned about a result?
I mean, so here's the I think the reality of it, and I think it deserves to be deserves to be said and thought of a lot more than what it is. Maybe is when you're middle school, even high school age, like, and if you love wrestling, go wrestle. Like, do whatever competition you can. I mean, even if it's like some small county tournament that they have going on around you, like go get the matches, man. Like, well, you get a day of wrestling out of a preseason, right? Like just little things like that. Competing is like you obviously have practice, but there's no better practice than competing. I mean, especially if the college level is a goal of yours, like you need to wrestle. You can't just do you can't I would go as far as say like you can't just do you can you but I wouldn't advise it like just doing Super 32 and that's your only tournament for the year. Just just doing freestyle and Greco and not getting into those preseason tournaments. Like if you have the energy for it and your family has the means of for doing it, like I think it needs to happen. So just little things like that.
Hmm.
Like it's not never being afraid to go compete and wrestle the best. I think that's a big part of why I just had so much confidence when I got to college. When I was in a way, my mindset was already uh, a made product. I think is the best
Wow.
way to put it. When I got there, Coach Kale has his little, um, not little, but has his things that he preaches to the team and whatnot, and we do a good job of adapting those. But for the most part, like I was already I was already set. I knew my capabilities.
All right, but now you're getting into an interesting dichotomy. Okay, you're saying go compete at everything, go compete at everything. What would you say to the kid that is burnt out, right? Or let me rephrase that. Do you think that adds to kids burning out? Because I don't know that it's just the competition. I think that there are things around the competition that add to the kids burning out. But I'm curious to hear your opinion on what you kids. You wrestled with kids in Minnesota, I'm sure, that were absolute ass kickers from like 7th grade to 11th grade. And then they're just like, I'm done with this. Where
Mhm.
does that come from?
So I mean, I'll speak to the overall public here. Like You have the special cases where, like, I mean, you get someone like Bo Bassett, kid's a tank,
Right.
wrestles so hard. He's
Sure.
posting pictures, waking up at 5 a.m., working out. Like, more power to him, dude. Like, if you can do that, go ahead and do that. And if that's what you want to do, that's a big thing too, is like wanting to do it is, that's a big part. Whenever my pops would bring in ideas of tournaments, different camps to do, like, it was like when he would bring the idea to me, I wanted to do it. So it was easy to say yes. So I think that's a big part of it, is like, if you want to be solid and you want to, like, have a future in it, there is a little part of that where you have to want to do it, especially at that age. Like, at that age, 15, 16, 17, 13, 14, whatever, like, I'll say 13 to 18, right? That middle school to high school age. If you can, like, learn to love wrestling, not love winning, like, love wrestling, and not be scared to, like, go to these tournaments and lose. I'll tell you, like, a college coach, that's one thing they look for. If you have like tread on your tires, man, and you like to compete, you know, and you're looser in competition than you are in practice, like, you'll be set. But you don't get that by just practicing. You don't get that by not competing. So I think that, I mean, that's why I say, like, the overall public, you have those kids who might do too much every once in a while. Those one in 1,000 might do too much and burn out. But for the most part, I don't think at that age it happens as often, which means I think it should be done.
That's fair. Yeah, I literally had that conversation last night. I did a private lesson with an athlete, and they were like, "Well, how come you did this in this position?" I'm like, "Because you love getting takedowns. I love wrestling. That's a very different thing."
Mhm.
And while it's cute that you think that it's great that you scored a takedown on me, that's great. Okay. But I'm still thinking about how I'm going to get my elbow control side by going. And, like, I love the wrestling part of it. You love the win. And you said winning. Last night it happened to be the takedown. Well, that's a result. That's a result. So how do we, now that you're getting into coaching more and more, how do we convey that to young people who are one of the reasons that they're successful is because they are so doggone competitive, right?
Mhm.
That is one of the reasons that they find success. How do you convey to them, like, look, you better love all of this,
Mhm.
not just like the hand raise, bud. Like, you gotta love
Mhm.
all this stuff.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, kids need to be challenged, dude. Kids need to be challenged. For example, I mean, I could name thousands of examples, but a couple of them. One, uh, I remember going to club practices, and this wasn't. I mean, this was something my dad would do too, having me practice things on both sides, right-handed, left-handed. I think that's why. I mean, that's why now I'm pretty fluid, ambidextrously being able to wrestle. But we'd have a practice, and the coach would be like, "You can only shoot left-handed today. Um, you can nobody leaves until you get a pin." You know, little things like that, like, little, like, you start doing live. You get into live for the practice, right? You do whatever live. All right, you're done with your live. All right, you can leave when someone gets a pin. Just
Can
little
we stop?
challenges
Can we
like that.
stop for there for 1 second? I'm sorry. If I don't say this now, I'll forget it. Do you remember a kid named Gary Dinmore?
Hmm.
He wrestled for. Okay, so Gary was one of
I
my
love
kids.
Gary.
Love him to death. Love him to death. Okay, I used to do these things at my gym called 24-hour lock-ins. It was such a bad idea. It was it was such a bad idea. It was we got groups of kids together and we would lock them in the wrestling room, not literally. Okay, I mean, like, figuratively.
Yeah.
We would put him in the wrestling room. Oh, yeah, don't you throw those fingers up like I actually meant it. No. I didn't lock him. I'm sure I'm past the statute of limitations here, but whatever. Okay. But it would be a 7 to 15-minute workout every hour at the top of the hour. Okay. So one time it'd be 300 squats, and then you get the rest of the hour to rest. So however long it took you to do your squats, that's how long you get to rest. And then the same thing would be pull-ups or whatever. But then every like 6 hours, we would do a wrestling match. And the last one we would do was a last man standing match. You had to get a pin to move on, and everyone kind of converged. And once you won, you raise your hand, you get a new partner. Gary Dinmore and Costa Riziotis wrestled for 45 minutes straight after training for 24 hours straight.
Jeez.
And it was the most unbelievable thing that, like, parents were like holding onto the walls, screaming. Like, it was like, because everyone was there to pick up their kids. They hadn't seen them in 24 hours. It was bananas. It got to the point where there was a scramble at the end. Okay. And they were both crying as they're wrestling because they're so tired. And they're literally crying as they're wrestling. And
That's
Costa finds himself on his back, and it was a scramble. It wasn't a controlled pin, but it was for sure a pin. And Gary Dinmore holds Costa's leg up in the air, sits on his chest, and that was the fall. And the place went absolutely bananas. And I had to get that story out. I don't know why, but I guess probably because Gary. But yeah, putting emphasis on the minutia becomes so much fun to me. Like things like I hear stories about Wade Schallis, walking into a gym and putting an X on the mat and saying, I'm going to pin the guy on that X today. You you hang around the sport long enough and you hear these stories. There's got to be some coming out of that Penn State room, huh?
Yeah. Stories of that kind of stuff.
Oh, I would love that. Yes.
We did. I mean, have you ever heard of, you ever played Call of Duty?
Yeah, I've heard, but I've not played it.
So on Call of Duty, there's this thing called gun game. And what it is you go through a cycle of weapons. The only way you move on to the next weapon is if you get a kill with it. So say you start out with a pistol, you get an elimination with the pistol, and then you move on to the next weapon. So we would do something like that, but with wrestling. So and you can't move on unless you get your kill. So this would be like our summer wrestling. You come in, drill for 20, 25 minutes, and then we're doing something like this. So, for example, you have to get a score with a high crotch, get a score, get two takedowns, get away, and then maybe one more, we'll say, get a takedown and a turn. If you didn't get the takedown, so say I never got the high crotch and my partner finishes all four, I just keep going. I keep going till practice is over.
That's brutal.
Yeah. And I mean, dude, you're not doing something like that with some walk on.
No, you're doing that with some of the best in the world.
Yes. Yeah. So, I mean, you make games like that, man. And they just again, it stops becoming about winning. The only thing I was focused on at that time was scoring a freaking high crotch. That's the only thing. I was not focused on all right, if I score this high crotch, now I got this. You can't, or else you'll never get it. You'll just be too worried. It's not optimal. So awesome. Just little things like that I've adapted. We've done it all. We've done the 25, 30-minute grind matches. We've also done first to 20 points, however long it takes, kind of thing. There was one time Shaq and I.
Go ahead.
There was one time Shaq and I, we were both hammers on top, and we were doing 30-second goes top and bottom, and we were doing first to three. Well, it got to the point where like we did like 12 of them, 12, 13, 14 of them, and neither of us were getting away. So we were just like, all right, I'm not letting you up. You're not letting me up. Let's just call it, bro. I mean, but the funny thing about it was like, the best part about it was you had to get away. It didn't matter so we started like locking hands, and then like we'd lock hands and be like, you didn't get away, dude. It doesn't count. So
seems like you're still down.
yeah. It's still 0-0, brother. We still got good.
Mark, that's great. That's so great. And there's no stall calls, right? So you just lock down on a leg.
Grab a leg. Yep. You didn't get away, dude. I had the leg for 25 seconds, but you didn't get an escape. That's the only way.
Sorry. Side headlock. Nobody's counting. I don't hear anybody counting.
Yeah.
The amount of cheating that goes on in every wrestling room is so funny to me. It's okay. And here's and like we're in a pretty good room here in Poway. Like this, it's very competitive. But to the point where I don't think it's competitive enough. Like, so for instance, Steve Neal is in our room every single day. And his son, Gunnar, is getting. Yeah.
Oh, nice. That's cool.
Yeah. Oh, it's not lost on me that I get a world champion and 3-time, Super Bowl winner in my room every day. But what I'm getting at though is like, he's the most competitive son of a gun that you will ever meet in your entire life. And so I'll go with it. Like his son is not big enough to go with him at all. But he's 170 pounds. So I go with him every once in a while. And we'll start out in situations and like, okay, starting out with a high crotch. I'll be damned if I'm not like jockeying for position before he blows that whistle. Like, I don't care if it's a high school kid. I don't give a rip. I am like, I'm high on the leg. I'm nudging with my head.
Heads up. It's in, yeah.
And right. And then, but he's not doing it to me. And his dad's like, are you crazy? He's going. And I'm like, on defense, I'm like sitting corner already. Like his dad's like, Gunnar, you have to do that. Like you need to be competitive in these positions at all times. I guess, we could sit here and trade stories all day, which would be cool. But I guess what I want to ask you about that is like, when did you find yourself? Because you were in good rooms in high school too. It's not like you were just in the Penn State room and you used to mollywop everyone. Like, when did you learn like, hey, I better start jockeying for you. I better start pushing into the wall a little bit. I better start, clubbing before the whistle. When did you learn that?
So that competitiveness is first and foremost at 100% is something like learned. Like it's not, you don't like you're saying, Stephen Neal, most competitive dudes in the world has to teach his son, help him learn to do this kind of thing. And I think it started for me, back in when I was in Michigan growing up. I would always wrestle with this. I'd wrestle with this dude. I forget his name. Anyways, like he wasn't like the best wrestler. And at this time I was probably 11 or 12. He was in high school and he wasn't the best wrestler, but he was freaking mean. And my dad always wanted me to go with him. It's like, he was mean. He did stuff like that. Like he started the little things, starting situations, like making sure that he had the best of it, getting into it. And, it got to the point where like it happened probably went with this guy 3, 4, 5 times. And then, some of those workouts ending in tears, like just, he was a mean dude. He wasn't the best wrestler. It's a mean dude. And, going into that practice, my dad just being like, don't be bullied. Don't let someone bully you into like don't let someone bully you out of your chance. You know what I'm saying? So like, and I think what he meant by that was in those situations, like, even if I get taken down, not being in a position where I'm already screwed because he stuffed my head before the whistle.
Yeah, you're 90% taken down before the whistle blows, right?
Yeah, so like little things like that, like it, and again, like it wasn't about that result of getting taken down or getting a takedown. It was about the like give your like this guy's taking your fair chance away. So something I think that I mean that was for sure the start of it of like um really like getting my getting my head right and getting learning that competitiveness.
What would you say to a young wrestler who is maybe having a lot of those ups and downs, right? Where they're starting to see some success, but then they're also kind of reverting back and maybe not competing. What would you say would be some strategies to really build on that and give yourself that fair shot?
Man, I mean, taking out the taking out the take out the hardships of it. If you can come out of a workout and you can honestly say that you worked hard and did your best in it, then like whatever that might entail, there could be, I mean, there's been days here in the pen room, right? Just for example, like um just a straight drill day, no live drilling. If you can come out of a workout like that, like thinking you did your best, then that's the standard you should be trying to meet. If you're for example taking getting frustrated with results, getting frustrated with the way that you might be wrestling, um, you know, that might be part of it. Like, yeah, you can go really hard in the live and might not be getting the results you want, but are you going hard when are you doing things right when you're not going live? Are you doing things right when you're out of the wrestling room? Those kind of things I think are way more important to focus on than rather than just telling some kid like, hey, you need to work harder. I don't think like break it down into details like what if you're having trouble here, well, what can we do better? Well, let's watch some video. Let's um as a as a coach, the first thing I'd say is let's wrestle. Like show me what you're I always if a kid, if a one thing I learned as a coach is like when a kid is having trouble with something, I never watch them have trouble with it. I tell them I'm like, all right, do it on me. Show me what you're having trouble with on me so that I can help you. How I would do it. Maybe there's another coach who would do it differently, but it's really important to have that if you're a coach to have that hands on with the
That
kid.
type of physical feedback. Physical feedback is way, way important.
Yeah.
Um, all right, let's talk more about coaching. You're going to be a great college wrestling coach. Not good, great.
Thank you.
You're welcome. But the reason I say that has nothing to do with your physical ability, and it certainly doesn't have anything to do with your accolades as an athlete. It has more to do with being honest with the athlete. Look, I saw you in that room. I know that how much these kids respect you, but it's also kind of like this relatability and vulnerability that you kind of show, like that they're just not going to get from Coach Reyna. They're just not, right? Like he's just kind of like this dude that's up here, and and I assume that that's very similar in different in other situations. So how do you create that bond with your athletes, and how do you do it so quickly, right? Because you were only on staff for what, a year or two.
Two.
So it's like how and it was very obvious that you created a very serious bond with some of those athletes. How do you do that so quickly?
Well, I mean, the one thing that made it like fast tracked, I feel like for me was being in college as recent as I was,
Mhm.
being very relatable for them. Um, I'd be lying if I said I don't think that had something to do with it. But I also think I'm equipped enough to do it no matter what age I am. I truly believe that. Um, a big part of it is showing grace in their like times they're down. Like the times they're like, if you want someone to trust you and uh give give their all, give everything they have, even if they don't think they have it, and two, they don't want to do it for themselves. Um, as I can tell you, as an athlete, there were plenty of times in college where I didn't really feel like uh didn't really one like feel like wrestling sometimes, like, but here's the thing, in college I never missed a match. So it stopped becoming like, there was a time where it stopped becoming about me. And you're wrestling and you look over at someone like Kel Sanderson in your corner, bro. Like, there's no shot I'm giving up a takedown. I might get taken down, but I'm not giving up a takedown. There's no shot I'm getting ridden out. There's no shot I'm not giving my best to ride somebody, get that riding time point. Like with someone like that I know and trust and believe in just as much as he believes in me in my corner. So I think that's a really big part of it, is like drawing it out of them even when they don't think they have it.
I think
Not
something
easy.
that you said that really resonates, just in that little clip, was, you know, there's no shot I'm giving up a takedown, but I may get taken down, which I think is a big delineation that a lot of people don't make, and especially young wrestlers, that they're, oh, I gave up a takedown. Like, there's a difference there between the two.
For sure. Yeah, I mean, it just all comes back to the effort. Like, someone's in on my legs. Did I make an honest effort to get my legs back and sprawl, or did I reach over the top and just not do things right? Something like that. Like, those are all things that you can look back on, watch the video, see something you could do differently. And even if you did not sprawl and you reached over the top, for an example, like, did you just like turn down? Did you reach over the top and you did something wrong, but you went and made up for it immediately after? Those are just little examples of, like, that's what I mean by I'm not giving up a takedown. I might get taken down, but you're gonna have to earn it, even if I do something
Yeah.
wrong.
My son is going to watch this podcast. We're going to put it on the TV in our living room, and because here's the deal, man. He he's good at he. Truth be told, he's pretty good when he's almost taken down from that stupid quad pod position in freestyle. All right, but the problem is he knows he's good there, so he gives up. He gives up. He gives up like 80% of the takedown, and then he'll go elbow hook, he'll go knee hook, and he just floats over the top when he's trying to go gut until he gets to the best wrestlers in the room, and then he gets his butt kicked, and he gets launched for five. So what do you say to a kid? And he's completely full of it. He'll tell me till the cows come home that he's not turning down on those single legs, but I know he is because he's good from that position, and he does score there more times than he doesn't. What do you say to those athletes that they're probably not being terribly honest with you about the position or about those situations?
I'd call that kind of like a stuck in their ways kind of thing.
Mm.
And I think one thing that helped me through that was what was something I did. So one thing I used to do for sure was not like, I used to telegraph my shots. And what I mean by that is, like, I would I really like to pull you, get your leg to step. Once your leg step, I lower my level and go. Right. And it was very robotic, almost like, um and I never even really noticed it until I remember JB said something to me. This wasn't while we were here. It's probably like high school. I think I was 15, 16, wrestling with him. And what made me like really think about how to change it was this this works on 90% of the people, but do I wrestle to beat 90% of the people? Do I wrestle to win 90% of my matches? Do I wrestle to compete do I wrestle to compete at a 90% level? I wouldn't say that for myself. I'm sure if you ask your son, he wouldn't say that for himself as young as he is. He wants to have if he can come out of a match and say with 100%, 100% to 100% completion that if he is in those positions and he didn't, and you can tell as a coach, I think you have to be honest with him and be like, I think you went there because you're comfortable there. I think you went there because you thought it would work. You thought it would work just like it did on the other 90% of people. And so
Yeah.
there's a part there, and what makes it difficult, what could make it difficult for you is being his dad.
Yeah. Yeah, that's fine. I can have someone else say it, right?
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
easy
I mean,
enough,
that's
right?
what
Steve,
my dad would tell me all these things, and it'd be like through one ear out the other sometimes. But a coach would tell me the same thing my dad would, and I'd be like, dang, you're kind of right. So like I think
especially when Steve Neal tells you, okay,
yeah,
cool.
yeah, yeah.
You
So
know,
you just got to be honest with your athlete and really like, and if not, if they don't believe you, then show them a video of them doing it. Be like, I don't think you tried to sprawl here, dude. I don't think you tried to post the head inside and get his head down, and look at it. Be like, do you think you tried to do that? That's what I would do, honestly.
yeah, we got cameras in the room. It's not that
Mhm.
hard to get a hold of that footage.
There you go.
Okay. Best wrestling shoe of all time. Don't think about it, just go.
Best wrestling shoe of all time. Asics. The I wore them in high school. I think they're called Lights, Lyte. Yellow
We've gotten a
lights.
lot of those. Yeah. Oh, the
Those are my
yellows.
favorite
You had a
shoes.
pair of yellows?
Mm-hmm.
Really?
Mm-hmm. I think they're at home. I haven't been able to wear them in a long time just because we went from Penn State's a Nike school and Penn's a Nike school, so I stuck with Nike. But those yellow lights, man, they're
Copy
like
that.
clouds on your feet.
All right. I like it. All right. If you had a magic wand and you could change one thing about the sport of wrestling, what would it be?
I would have like, let's say folk style wrestling. I would have some
You
sort of like,
do whatever you want.
okay, I'll stick to folk style wrestling. I'll say some sort of out of bounds push out
Step
rule.
out rule.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think it's
Yeah, I'll take it a step further, man. I love the step out rule so much. I think that we should get away from grounded. Like I think that it's your foot goes out of bounds, foot, head, elbow goes out of bounds, it's one. Like period, the end. Like there's no ambiguity involved. I love what the step out rule has done for the sport.
yeah,
Yeah.
that or like I guess with the same thing, and as far as folk style wrestling goes, make the edge of the mat bigger. There should be like, why should there ever like something that happened to that army kid, Ben Pasuk
Yeah.
again? Why
Foot
should that
goes
never
out.
happen?
Yeah.
That should
Yeah.
never happen if the edge
Yeah, that's a good point. That's a good point. Like we're at an NCAA tournament. Why the heck are we even considering?
That's
You know,
that's one thing that I think the rule change at a high school level that's taking place next year is going to have a big impact because I don't know about you, Mike, but I've been to several high school wrestling tournaments where one mat ends here and the next one is starting right here. So going to be
circles
real
are this
interesting.
close together.
Yeah, going to be real interesting to wrestle on the edge there when you're halfway into the next mat.
yeah, we take for granted some of the logistics involved. That's for sure. I haven't thought about that, Joel. Okay. All right. Last question. You only get 4 and they have to be American. Who is on your Mount Rushmore of wrestling?
Oh shoot. Jordan Burroughs. Freaking love that dude.
JB,
He's the
love
man.
him.
John Smith.
Mm-hmm.
Those are two no-brainers.
Right.
Gotta put Cale Sanderson.
Mm-hmm.
He doesn't have longevity, but he does have like history.
Yeah, but you're talking about Cale. No, look, if you're just talking about impact on the sport,
yeah,
number
okay.
one, I mean, look, there's no. He's on mine too. How about that? Okay. And I understand. Like, I understand he's only got one Olympic gold medal. Oh, is that it? Just one? But yeah, no, impact on the sport for sure, no question.
And
one more.
Lastly, you know what? I gotta put a brother on there. I like Kenny Monday, man.
Kenny Monday. I like that. Look, people don't realize he made 3 Olympic teams. 1, 2, 3. Like, that's a lot of Olympic teams. Like, that's unreal. And like, he only has like losses to, like Sativ. Pretty good.
So
so it's like, yeah.
That's one thing that I like. And the other thing that I like about him is taking that Morgan State job.
Yeah.
Why not? We wrestled them this year, and he is building a program from the absolute ground up. They have don't get me wrong, they have some kids who are talented and can be talented and can be good, but it was like for him to, I forget where he was. I think he was at the Spire School in Ohio.
And then UNC before that. Mm-hmm.
Okay, yeah. So I just think like for someone who didn't really have to take that chance, he was set with whatever he had to do and being a freaking trailblazer and bringing wrestling to an HBCU. I respect that a lot.
Pretty dope stuff. All right, Mark Hall, I'm going to let you go and get about your life. Thank you very much for doing this. I appreciate it.
Of course. Hey, if you ever want to do it again, man, we can get into it.
We're going to do it again.
Famous last words. If you're volunteering to come back, we're getting you back on.
Sounds good.
No doubt about it. Thank you, brother. We'll talk to you soon.
Yep.
Wait. Don't go anywhere. Before you hit that next button, if you enjoyed listening to this episode, do us a huge favor. Click that subscribe button. And if you're so inclined, leave a review and share it.
What you want to know, man? Welcome to the show.